I want to let everyone know that we are recording today's session. And as a part of the Development and Alumni Relations vision of lifelong engagement, we have launched the Society of Terrier Alumni Retirees, affectionately known as STAR. The aim of STAR is to engage with retired alumni and others who are preparing for retirement. Through this network, we offer access to valuable tools, programs, and communities to help our alumni stay connected with each other and BU. After the presentation, I will follow up with steps on how you can join the STAR network through BU Connects. As you learn, one way to find purpose is through volunteerism. Volunteers play an essential role in growing and strengthening the BU community. Whether you are serving on a dean's advisory board of a school or college, representing BU in your city through a regional leadership council, or joining an alumni group like STAR. Before I introduce today's speaker, just a few housekeeping notes. Again, today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Relations website found at www.bu.edu/alumni. Again, www.bu.edu/alumni. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions you have after her presentation. So please, you are welcome to use the chat and submit your questions using that function. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, the College of Arts and Science alumni, Jill Steinberg. Jill, Ph.D., was an emeritus professor at San Jose State University, is a licensed clinical psychologist, Salzburg Fellow, author and founder of MyRetirementWorks.com. She received her undergraduate degree from Boston University in 1972 and doctorate in clinical psychology from Ohio State University in 1978. She taught classes and has presented her research on successful retirement to universities, including Boston University, Google, and other professional organizations. Her research was published in The Aging Consumer, Perspectives from Psychology and Economics, Routledge, 2021. Jill is enjoying retirement. As a lifelong learner, she keeps herself immersed in the retirement literature and has found time to volunteer to help me launch STAR. Thank you, Jill. I am truly grateful for all of her support, contributions, and wonderful ideas. Jill, thank you again for hosting and participating in this webinar. Please take it away.
Thank you, Liliana. And as Liliana said, I'm an emeritus professor and clinical psychologist. I'm 73 and I retired 16 years ago. Since retiring, my research, publications, teaching, and consulting have primarily dealt with successful retirement. You know, those who planned for retirement typically at best planned for their finances. And when thinking about their life, they kind of imagine a long weekend filled with free time to garden and read, travel, bike, time with friends. The research does find that retirement can start with a great honeymoon phase. People are so glad to have that time. But typically, retirement proceeds with a steep decline in happiness as people wake up to, you know, I've done all that. Now what? Something's missing. And then usually retirement stabilizes with as much happiness as one had while working. Depending on the survey, at best, 75% of people who are privileged enough to retire even enjoy it. 25% experience difficulty. 10% are not at all satisfied, and retirement satisfaction tends to decrease as people age. This is true regardless of the age the person retires. Having purpose is a major component in terms of successful retirement, and actually a significant component throughout life at any age. While developing purpose is a lifelong ongoing process, the research shows that purpose tends to drop with old age. That's why we're giving this two-part presentation. Today, I'm going to present to you the multifaceted evidence to the importance of purpose and how to find and achieve one's purpose. Next week, November 15th, we'll present the panel, BU alum. This is funny. Liliana and I have not given a presentation before, so we have to work out our kinks. You're way ahead of me on slides, but whatever. You'll get the, thank you. Okay. Anyway, the alum are going to be illustrating what I present today by telling you their personal stories and where they're at in this stage of life. And then they'll be able to answer your questions, particularly if questions come up today. I'll be in charge of that panel. We'll be able to answer some more questions. I'm going to present for about 35, 40 minutes, which leaves you time to ask questions at the end. So think about your life. How do you view it? Does your life feel meaningful with close relationships, purpose, and physical activities, or are you feeling a bit adrift? Do you perceive yourself as stuck, or do you proactively think about and reflect what you could do to make things better? Do you even know what you find purposeful and care about? So why find purpose? There is an abundance of research. Why find purpose? Next slide, Liliana. There's an abundance of research on the importance of having a purpose for physical and mental health and well-being across the lifespan. However, the research suggests the reward of retiring may be the punishment of not mattering. Purpose is powerful. People who have a higher sense of purpose, defined as the extent that they feel they have goals and directions guiding them, live longer, healthier, and happier lives. The longitudinal research with large samples found that older adults with a higher sense of purpose, for example, are less at risk for neurocognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, and stroke. Lack of purpose contributes at least as much to death and disease as do lifestyle factors as tobacco use, poor diet, inactivity, and stress. In the last 100 years, our average life expectancies have increased by almost 30 years. However, our society's core institutions, our families, our educational systems, our workplaces, our healthcare, housing, even our neighborhoods have not updated to serve our needs, which can impede our ability to maintain purpose. Employment, for example, can provide an avenue for social connection and identity, while retirement changes that structure, which can lead to many losses, like our sense of identity, our roles, our social connections, our purpose, even our daily structure. There is, in fact, a negative correlation between retirement and purpose in life. Sense of purpose is malleable and later in life, and we're not doomed. So even though there's an abundance of research on the importance of purpose, there's not so much research on how to find purpose, which is why Liliana and the advisory committee asked me to give this presentation. So let's change now to defining purpose. What is purpose? Purpose has 3 characteristics. So go ahead a couple, Liliana, to what is purpose? Good. Next one is purpose has 3 characteristics. First one is having a stable goal. The second is achieving something meaningful beyond yourself. And the third is making progress to accomplish the goal. Purpose in life can determine goals, and thus it influences our daily decisions regarding the use of our resources. It's efficiency in action for our mind and behavior. That next slide should have been, yeah. Okay. So I want to give you some examples of how research assess purpose in life. So here's some items from a widely used scale. I have a sense of direction and purpose in life. My daily activities often seem trivial and unimportant to me. I enjoy making plans for the future and working to make them a reality. So we're going to switch now. How do you find purpose in life? Next slide. Good. So this might be the first time you really had the opportunity, the time and resources to figure out and do what you want, what has meaning for you. It's kind of a paradoxical situation. For years, people have yearned for more autonomy and time to shape their lives. And after retirement, with plenty of time, individuals can feel lost, adrift. They can experience choice overload, and they have family and other demands they never anticipated. But I assume you already have a good framework for how to approach finding purpose, because you've hopefully been thinking about planning and implementing ways to save for your retirement, and you proactively chose to be here at this BU presentation. In terms of purpose, one way to start thinking about what you've been successful at. So perhaps you've been successful at accomplishing your financial planning or your career, your relationships, maybe your physical activities or your continued learning. Then consider what has worked for you in that process and what hasn't. So this is the essence of the purpose literature. Next slide. The literature has you focus on figuring out how to apply your best self to things that matter most to you, what you deeply value, and what's bigger than yourself. How to apply your best self to things that matter most to you, what you deeply value, what's bigger than yourself. It's a process. You evolve, you reevaluate. So you start with a purpose, not the purpose. So for example, maybe from this talk, you'll start thinking, you know, people in my life really matter to me. Then perhaps you're going to leave with the goal of devoting more of your time and energy to bringing your best self to your people. Or perhaps you realize social justice is what matters, and I haven't been putting enough into that. Maybe you'll leave deciding to bring your best self to help LGBTQ plus BU alum and students. There are multiple routes to achieve purpose, and maybe you'll find the direct route, life crafting, that I'm going to describe today as the best for you, or perhaps you're going to work on other parts of your life that are known to increase purpose, such as your social connections, or perhaps you'll tweak both of them. So taking charge of retirement is really a big endeavor. It's characterized by three major challenges. The first one is reshaping major parts of your life. Okay, keep going. I'll wait till the, okay, good, we're together. The first one is reshaping major parts of your life that were previously governed by organizational requirements, such as the external structures of your daily routines, when to go to work, what's work time versus not work time, whom you're going to relate to. Now, this doesn't just affect you, it affects others' expectations of you. All of a sudden, others think you have available time, and that's where a lot of demands come in on you. The second one is we leave behind a goal context, something that was kind of given to us, that we're set. You have to think about your goals. That's gone. It's up to you now. And lastly, at this age, we have a more limited future time perspective, which can affect how we think about what we want to do. The research suggests three main pathways that lead to finding purpose in life. The first one is proactive, because an individual seeks out various opportunities to help them. That's what you've done by coming here today. Life crafting that I'm going to tell you about is in this first category. The second category of social learning is by experiences such as mentoring that can show you other possibilities and show you the power of working with others in dealing with finding your purpose. Our panel next week of BU alum and the mentoring program we're developing for people our age to help each other illustrate this second category. The last category, reactive development, just merely means after some kind of event you've attended, you notice, I'm feeling like I have some purpose here. So really all you have to do for this category is live your life, pay attention, and reflect. But get this, the research finds that individuals who report high levels of trying to explore and find their purpose in life tend to report greater negative affect and anxiety. Needless to say, my goal is not to make you feel more anxious. Therefore, we're going to focus now on the concrete, specific ways of how to find your purpose so you can leave with a concrete what next and plan. So I'm going to give you what the literature says is the framework, the tools, the foundation. But you're going to have to leave here and do all the work. If we were doing a class, then you would leave with a homework assignment from me of how to focus, what's next, some readings, and you'd be coming back to the class to report on how things are going and getting feedback from your peers. Since we're not doing that, I assume a lot of questions are going to come up in your mind. I'm telling you what you need to do, and then it's easier to say what to do than actually do it. You can email me, and maybe if when we see your emails or your chat questions, it'll help us develop future programs for our engagement. So I'm going to start with a list of 6 skills. They're all evidence-based, but not specifically for purpose. They're culled from my years of teaching and clinical work on finding success. Again, these are skills. If you don't have them, you can get them. If you have them, you can improve them if you think you need to do that. People need to be assertive. You need to go for what you want, and you need to be proactive. So if you see something you don't like, you have to try to fix it. If it's something that looks like an opportunity, you try and get engaged, you try and contribute, you go for proactively thinking about things and assertively going for them. You need to be analytic and reflective. Think about your experience, what's working, what's not, what maybe you need to change. People need to have grit. Grit is an extreme trait of self-discipline and perseverance. It actually outpredicts IQ for academic success. Controlling for education, older people have more grit than younger people, with those over 65 having much more than any age group. I tell you this because we can use our grit to succeed. Even though you might think your memory isn't as good as it used to be, or your energy isn't as good as it used to be, you can use your grit. We can learn computer skills, piano skills. We can learn to play pickleball, and we can get better social skills. So let's go specifically to what's life crafting. It's a process of conscious efforts to create meaning in your life. There are 3 parts to it. Cognitive crafting is reframing how you view life. The second one is social support to manage your life challenges. That's called relational crafting. The third is challenge crafting, which means we're actively seeking challenges to facilitate our personal growth. When individuals feel that their lives are connected with something larger than themselves, and you're going to hear that repeated and repeated, then they feel like they're making a difference, and they feel like they have more meaning or purpose in life. The next slide is a really good one. Okay, after that, the next slide. Good. So this one gives you a whole model of what life crafting looks like in summary. You see, I've already started the first concepts on the left, and then on the right are some examples. I am going to go through this. If this is a good thing, if it looks good to you, you might want to take a picture of that slide. And of course, this is being recorded. You can go back. So the first one, cognitive crafting, is trying to reframe life such that it provides more meaning for you. And the 2 cognitive crafting strategies are having more positive thinking. So looking for proactive ways you can make changes in your life especially if there are adverse events going on, ways to get through difficult situations. I know the world is really rough right now, and it tends to make people feel like they can't do anything. There are still things we can do to try and make your life better, your loved ones better, or the world better. So it's proactively thinking about how you can get more meaning and having more positive thinking, and secondly, transcending your personal goals, thinking about how your life can contribute to society or others. Now, I'm not a Pollyannish person. I don't think it Pollyanishly. If you're looking at your life and you can't think positively, and you ask others, can you think about my life and how it's positive or what I could be doing? And you're stuck, then go to the next area, relational crafting. That relational crafting is seeking social support to further pursue your personal or life goals. When you have mutually beneficial relationship with others, then you feel like your life has meaning. Good relationships with others actually may be the single most important source of life satisfaction and emotional well-being for people across all ages and cultures. Maybe you've heard of the Harvard study with Waldinger. It's the longest longitudinal study looking at life satisfaction. It started in 1938 that's over 85 years ago, with 268 Harvard sophomores. Now that's a very limited bias sample, but they increased their subjects to include their offspring, blue-collar workers, and women. And what they found, which surprised them and doesn't surprise me, is that relationships have such a powerful influence on our health. Close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keep people happy throughout life. And they're better predictors. Close relationships are better predictors of long and happy lives than our social class, our IQ, or our genes. So you're going to see there's a lot of emphasis in this talk on the importance of our social connections and meaningful relationships and contributing to others. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. How can you figure out who's important, what you want to do, and how you can contribute? Carstensen, who's at Stanford, says we have an increasing need for strong social connections. It's quality relationships, not our quantity. But you're going to see there's a big gender issue here. By retirement age, people who identify as males typically don't have the social structure or skills necessary to have close friends. And those people who identify male in heterosexual relationships tend to depend on their partners. And the research shows that can be a problem. It's a whole other presentation, but I'm alerting you to things that can be affecting your sense of well-being. There are 3 relational crafting strategies. So we're still in the relational crafting. Thank you. So creating new relationships, working on improving your current ones, and using your current ones to help you and help others improve lives. I did a class for BU when I was giving more of my presentations on planning for retirement, and that class asked me to give an entire session just dedicated to this issue of relationships and friendships and how to develop them. Social support is so important that maybe you've seen this new trend, these happy to chat benches. They started in the UK and now it's spreading across other countries. They're just benches that are painted brightly colors that encourage people to engage with one another, whether that's light chit chat or something deeper. Anything to reduce the sense of isolation and loneliness that people feel, particularly that can happen at our age. Okay, so I've gone through cognitive crafting, relational crafting, and now I'm going to go to challenge crafting. Good. Challenge crafting. You know, the need to grow and develop ourselves is at the core of most meaning-making strategies. At all ages, particularly at our age, we still want personal growth, achievement, and accomplishments. That's when you'll see, when I encourage you to look for purpose, look for something also that can challenge you. So I'm going to go specifically now to how do you craft. I'm going to tell you the 7 areas that you look at. And if I was doing a class, this could take a whole semester. We would get clearer on the concepts, how you do it. So I'm going to give you the foundation. This is what to look at, but it's up to you to fill in the blanks or get help from us. Write to me. Maybe you'll get involved in our mentoring program. The first category deals with your values and passions. So what do you like to do? What's important to you? What kind of relationships would you like to have? How do you want to engage your mind? If you look at the literature on transitions, as people transitions, their values tend to change. So maybe you remember if you became a parent, maybe your values and your priorities changed. Or if you lost an important loved one, or you found out that you're having a chronic illness, it makes people change. What's really important to me? Well, the literature on retirement, even the most recent study, 2023, says as we retire, our values don't change. So what you've been valuing is what you will value, and you can use them to inform your what next. We tweak to some degree, things can become more or less important, but what we value pretty much stays the same. So that was the first. The second is you want to look at your competencies and habits. What qualities do you like about yourself and what qualities don't you like? And, you know, we kind of get stuck. We can't get distance to think about ourselves. So think about others. Is there somebody like you emulate? What is it about them that you particularly like? What habits? What do they do that you would maybe want to be like, or talk to them about what they like about themselves or not, to try and help you think, are there other things I want to develop either in myself or learn? The third category is reflecting on your present and future social life. When you're thinking about your best self, what kind of friend do you want to be? What kind of family member? And again, it's hard to get distance on thinking about ourselves. So think about, is there somebody else in your social network, your family, your friends that you really respect, how they relate to others, how they keep up their social commitments and people feel important with them? What skills do they have? What behaviors are they doing that make you feel important with them? And just talk to them, ask them how they learn to be a good friend, a good family member. The next category is thinking about your possible future. What meaningful work or contributions? What's important to you? Are there things you want to do? If you're stuck here, can you think about your past life? Were there things, not your past life, earlier in your life, are there things that were important to you that you just gave up to stay focused maybe on your career? Or maybe there are things that you did at your work that you're missing. Or maybe there's something you'd like to be remembered for, and it's time to start working on that. Next, think about your ideal future and contrast it to if you make no changes. You're going to see the research says thinking about doing nothing, if you actually focus on it, gets people to do something. They don't want to be stuck with how they are. Next, think about goal attainment and if-then plans. Maybe you'll be thinking concretely what it is you want to do. And then you have to think about, well, what's going to get in my way? Perhaps your health isn't what it used to be, and you're trying to think, well, how can I do that with these goals? Think about it, how it will limit you and what you need to do to make the situation more likely you can do it. Or think about, maybe you realized what you want to do is in a different climate or nearer friends, or it costs less to live there, but maybe your children don't want you to move. Or maybe your children are saying, come closer, we want you to help with child care, and you're thinking, but I'm situated here, I like it here. There are things that might get in the way of you achieving what you want to do, so try and think proactively before you get in that situation. Lastly, it's good to make public commitments of your goals, be accountable. So tell your family and friends, I'm thinking about this, maybe I can do it, and or tell me, email us, it'd be you. Telling others helps you continue with your commitments. So my research on successful retirement found that all the things I'm telling you are true and helpful. What I found for my subjects was something significant that added to the literature. It's important to implement something. Implement anything before you retire, or if you're already retired, start thinking about, what can I implement today? Is there something I can even do today, or as I leave this presentation? Remember, it doesn't matter. We're not going for a right or best goal. We're trying to get you involved in the process of reflecting on your life and doing what you can do to make your life the best you can. Oh, and motivation to change matters. So for some of you, you might need to start here. You might say, nope, I'm not changing. Okay, that's your choice. But if you want things to go better, then perhaps you have to start with that. So what I'm going to do now is turn to a mixture of best practices, both to establish your goals and what the research says is important for our well-being at our age. It might give you more ideas of your purpose. I start with social factors, since social network size and relationship qualities are among the strongest predictors of sense of purpose in middle to older adulthood. Mattering to others really does matter. And it doesn't just matter that your partner matters to others, it matters that you matter to others. Feeling like you belong helps people continue dealing with life in a good way. And it can just plain intrinsically motivate you to do things with others that can feel like you have purpose. There's what the literature says, Carstensen particularly, is that as we get older, we value our relationships we have and want to strengthen them. And some of the research says we value our family relationships more than friends. Now, that's kind of the punchline. We value our family relationships more than friends. So, I go through all the literature, and that's just kind of an endpoint. Really, if you look specifically, people in heterosexual couples that value their couple or doing well, they tend to value friends more than the rest of their family. People that are uncoupled tend to value their family more than friends. The LGBTQ plus community values their chosen family. So you can get into all the specifics, but bottom line, at our age, we value our family, we value the relationships we've had to strengthen them. Now, that can be a problem because, as we age, we lose people. We lose people through death, people move, people get divorced. I ask you to be sensitive to this issue because, especially for non-coupled people, if you leave here today and say, Jill drummed it into me, it's time I start working on the quality of my relationships or having more relationships. Well, if you don't have those skills already, like I said, it's a skill set you can learn. And on the other hand, the problem is people are not wanting to necessarily make new friends. They're wanting to focus on the people that they're already close to. And I ask you to be sensitive to this. for yourself and for others, especially people who are not coupled. Since the 80s, there's been a phenomena of people going solo or living alone for all ages. It actually, more people live alone than in the traditional nuclear family anymore. 1 out of 3 baby boomers live alone. We can easily, if you're not living alone, you may easily find yourself living alone. So be sensitive. It's a very important issue to have social connection. So help others in this. Social support, of course, I'm talking about quality relationships. You know that how relationships that have strain on them don't feel great, and they definitely constrain our ability to find purpose. I'm going to switch to volunteering because volunteering has one of the strongest associations with increased purpose. When people volunteer, it can give them a role, it can give them a framework for their daily life, it can help them connect with others and feel like they're contributing to society. That's what the research is. Now, my research says, and that my samples maybe was around 125, that volunteer positions are great if you can find satisfying ones. Unfortunately, at our age, oftentimes people give us volunteer positions for the organizations we value that give us meaning, but our positions aren't responsible like we're used to. So what my subjects say to do is network. Ask others you know of that have positions they like. How did they figure it out? How did they find positions? And come, if you want to learn more at the BU panel, ask the panel, how did they find purpose? How did they find positions that give them meaning? And the BU has excellent opportunities, like Liliana said, to contribute. What I'm doing now is volunteering, and it gives me immense purpose. And really, my goal is hopefully I'm helping you with finding how you can contribute to the best life. If you look at the volunteer literature, typical, women mainly get in helping others. Males, people identifying these gender categories, are become administrators. People that have been managers like to mentor. So you might be particularly interested in our program. People like that quality ongoing relationship. I'll give you one example of Jim and Paula Ferris. And when I tell you people, I'm really using their real names, and they've all given me permission that when I lecture, when I do research, it's okay to use their name. They want to contribute too to people having better lives. So Jim and Paula Ferris, I met them in their 90s when I was interviewing them. And they met in Hollywood in their 20s, working on Tom and Jerry cartoons. They both were into film. You may have heard of their daughter because she did the movie Little Miss Sunshine. Anyway, they moved to Santa Cruz about 30 years before they moved to Santa Cruz in their 60s, 30 years before I was interviewing them. And they needed, for various reasons, they moved here. And they actually started our Osher Lifelong Learner at UC Santa Cruz. And it's a total volunteer volunteer program with over 900 people now. They started that, and in their homes, they started a film group where people could come, and they continued it weekly for over 25 years until 1 week before Jim died. It had a lot of meaning to them, they used the skills they had, and it contributed to many of us. The research shows that people of all ages have fluctuations in purpose from day to day, and about 40% of the variability in our daily purpose comes from our social interaction quality. On days that you have better social interactions, tend to feel like you have more purpose, you're doing better things. It's especially true for people who are no longer working. I'm going to switch now to another indirect approach. Let me see how we're doing with time. Okay, anyway, I'll keep going. Maybe you've heard of Martin Seligman. He's one of the biggest psychologists in the field. He's at University of Pennsylvania. Maybe you've heard of the concept of flourishing or positive psychology. Seligman has a well-being theory that he says you need to work on all 5 of these elements. And the acronym that's in front of you is PERMA. PERMA stands for P is for positive emotions, taking all things together. How happy or satisfied would you say you are? E is for engagement. How interested are you in other things, other people? I love learning new things would be a response to engagement. The R is about your relationships, having positive relationships. There are people in my life who really care about me and I care about. The M is for meaning. This is about belonging to and serving something that you believe is bigger than yourself. It's not just your sense of meaning, but the degree to which you actually belong to and actually serve something larger than yourself. And A is accomplishment. So Liliana A, thank you. A is accomplishment. So Seligman has a great website you can find, and it can, with free resources to help you identify your values, and so you can apply your values to something bigger than yourself. You know, during COVID, I was fortunate, even though COVID was very difficult for me personally, just anyway, but I found very meaningful situations. I worked a lot. Here's an example from a class I did of one person that could give you an idea of putting your strengths in action. So she was a medical doctor, young, in her 40s, and she was getting ready to quit being an MD. COVID just ruined medicine for her. She's thinking, what else would I do? And she thought, you know, I love flowers. I've never had the time to garden. Maybe I could learn to garden. That would involve me learning with others. She said, then I could pick my flowers and learn floral arranging. And then I could bring them to sick kids in a hospital. So she actually was able to involve a lot of these things. Or she thought maybe I could learn to play keyboard. She had a keyboard in one of the rooms that she'd never even opened the box since she started her residency. She thought I could learn to play keyboard and then go to the hospital and play for these kids. To stimulate, you know, I said you want to implement something. Goal setting is very important. It works better to set goals than just say, I'm going to do my best. And the higher you set your goals, the better you perform. The acronym that's in front of you, the research says for setting goals, you want SMART goals. They need to be specific, meaningful, attainable, realistic, and timely. So, you know, I see that this took a little longer since we started a little later. Anyway, if you're having questions, please put them in the chat. If we don't get to them now, I will write back to you. I definitely will. So I'm going to give you an example of Arthur. I met Arthur in his late 40s, and he actually ends up retiring after I meet him, and he retires from Google at age 47. Now, Arthur was not wealthy at all growing up, but he was fortunate enough that his skills got him one of the early positions in Google, and we can thank him largely for text messaging. Anyway, people always told him, if you have the chance when your children are young, if you can spend time with them, be at home and do that. And he and his wife, also a professional, decided to take that risk. What Arthur was most worried about leaving Google was that he'd miss his friends, especially friends who liked talking computer science with him. So Arthur, being very goal-oriented, thought, okay, if I'm going to miss my friends, he knew he could figure out how to get meaning with computer science and how he could involve himself with others. But it was really the friendship. What was he going to do? And it's really a serious problem. If you look at the literature and what people actually miss about their work, Those that had good relationships missed the relationships most. And Google's quite different from academia. Academia encourages me to work with my colleagues. Google, you're out and you are out. They don't want you talking to your colleagues the way you did. They don't want you knowing what's going on or their secrets. In fact, when I presented to Google, they weren't even going to let Arthur come. And here they are blasting it to all their satellites. But we worked out a way that they let him come. He's very important to my research, too. Anyway, I do follow up with some of the people I interviewed, and Arthur loves his life. He used to think he was going to go back to work, and now he knows he's not going back to work because he has found his friendships are better than they've ever been. He has the time to cultivate them, including from Google, from his East Coast, going to MIT. His friendships have deepened. He volunteers at his child's school. And like I said, he has ways to continue with an interest of computer science. It's better when you're setting your goals to focus on learning compared to performance goals. So for example, if you leave this today and you say, gee, I want to work on making friends, it's better to focus on, I'm going to learn about how to make friends than say, I'm going to have X friends by a month from now. Or perhaps you say, gee, I do want a volunteer position. It's better to start focusing on, I wonder how people find this. What can I do? Rather than say, by December, I'm going to have a good position. I want to tell you about someone, Elliot Aronson, who I interviewed. You might have heard of him. He's an eminent psychologist. Maybe you've heard of cognitive dissonance. Well, when I was interviewing him, he had already retired, but he told me about when he was still working, he found out he was going blind, and he was very proactive about what he was going to do. He started to learn about using a cane. He was able to get involved in programs so he could get a seeing eye dog, and he learned the skills so his computer could talk to him, and he did this while he was still sighted. And he ended up focusing on his research and writing, because he could do that with the aid of computers and others, but he had to give up, he felt like he had to give up his teaching. So when I met him, we decided to teach together so I could be his sight. And after teaching with me, he realized there are ways that he could teach not being sighted. And at 81, he started teaching again. For those of you that have set goals and actually reached them, you probably have experienced that it's easier to reach a goal than maintain it. So just think about losing weight. People will say, oh, I lost this much weight, but it's very hard to keep it off. So this I have come to realize, but it's not in the literature yet. It's good to retweak your goals. Don't just say, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Think about what you're doing. Is there a way I can set a new goal to keep yourself involved? So I'm going to tell you about another person I interviewed, Leslie. Leslie was in her 60s when she retired. Leslie is a mega planner. So she had a very high position in mental health. She was a psychologist, and she decided, okay, I'm going to be retiring. I'm going to take a lower, very responsible position. And she planned everything for retirement that she and her husband were going to do together. Then everything changed. Her husband died, her dog died, and Leslie did not have close friends. She was not a person that developed friendship, so here she was stuck. She was close to her children, but they lived far away. Anyway, Leslie knew how to plan for things she wanted to do in purpose, but all she said she needed to do was reorder her thinking. Instead of planning for months or years, she now plans her days when she fills them with elements that are important to her. So the 5 elements she uses to guide her day are: she wants physical activity every day, she wants social connection, she wants no, you're way ahead of me. Go back a slide. Thank you. Where Leslie's elements, she wants physical activity, social connection, meditation, creativity, and that for her could be cooking or music, and service to others. When you're setting your goals, approach goals have been found to lead to more satisfaction than avoidance goals. So if you're thinking about, gee, I get lonely or I get bored, it's better to plan something like I want to work on volunteering than avoiding loneliness. Discovering your purpose has two sides. People tend to think, oh, what do I like doing? And that's good, and it can be useful to inform you. But the literature says it's better to think what's important to you. That can help you discover and maintain your purpose. Okay, so you had this slide up about physical activity. You know, there's an abundance of literature, I'm sure you all know, about the importance of physical activity in terms of physical and mental health and well-being. I encourage you to think about if you are a physical person, you want to get physical, think of the other things I told you that could be important. Use this as an alternative route to find your purpose. Involve your friends. Maybe your friends aren't very physical. Involve them or other, maybe you want to work with foster kids. Or maybe BU students, the literature on intergenerational connections, generativity, teaching others, very important. So maybe you could use your physical activity to do some kind of fundraising. And remember, my research says implement, and we're going for a purpose, not necessarily the purpose. Satisficers, people who think things are good enough, have better well-being than maximizers. People who think I must find the perfect position to volunteer, they don't do as well as, okay, this looks good, I'll try it. Think about, like I said, your ideal life. And if you do nothing, that can motivate you thinking about, oh boy, is it going to be like this? You know, you can have 20 years since you retired. And who knows, I'm 73. I'm not sure right now I can do these things. So you think about if you do nothing. And remember, a new habit, say like flossing, typically takes 1 to 2, even 3 months. So you've got to stick with things. Now I'm going to end with something, even though the rest of the presentation was evidence-based. This isn't evidence-based, but I find it poignant and helpful. Bronnie Ware is a nurse for patients who are dying, and she writes about regrets of dying, people who are dying. So I'd like you to think about, are there things you've always wanted to do, but don't want to find you've run out of time or health or resources to do it? Maybe that can motivate you. So the number one regret is, next slide, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So I wish you the courage and support to live a life that really has purpose for you. I look forward to hearing from you, your reactions, your questions, and hopefully seeing you next week to learn from your BU alum. And now Liliana has something she wants to say, or we can get right to your questions and answers. And thank you for coming and staying with the presentation.
Well, Jill, I'll probably lift up just a couple of questions that came up. There was a question about it's hard to move to a new community, and how do you embrace this? Do you have any advice? And I think that some of the goal stuff that you mentioned probably falls into that category.
I do. And actually, one of the panel members did that and has good information about their experience moving, actually, at least one. And so you can ask them more specifically. It's not in the literature yet, but I can tell you some of the things my subject said. If you're thinking of moving, try, if you can possibly afford it, rent first. You don't know if you're really going to like the place, or go meet people you know that live there. Try it out a little. And then if you can possibly rent, and before you make a big decision to buy or what section to live in, see about the communities there, how you like it. So that's a little I can tell you, but I know that Gary has moved and he can possibly tell you more of the nitty gritty. He that he learned. And a lot of people do move at this age. Paula and Jim Ferris moved, and they were excellent examples of they rented, found where it would be best for them.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jill. And we certainly will follow up with some others. And when you join next week's panel discussion, which Jill would lead with some other with 5 other alums, it'll be great to hear some of them share those stories with you as well. Another question that came up in the meantime of doing all of this, how do you live without knowing? How do you live with uncertainty?
I'll say that in just 1 second, but fortunately, you know, when I give these presentations, I'm kind of in another zone, especially talking to a computer. It's wild. But I don't look at the chat, but I got lucky. My eyes went to Andy, who thanked me for the presentation. At least for Andy, it was thoughtful and helpful for you. I really appreciate seeing that because I don't know how it's going. It's a really weird experience compared to my teaching in person or classes. Anyway, how do you live with uncertainty? You know, of course, it's a complicated question. And what I'd like to say to you is look at your own skills. We've lived with uncertainty our whole lives. You know, when we were applying to college, when we were graduating college, things were uncertain. Oh, do we like this person? Is this a date or are they liking me back? You've lived with uncertainty your whole life. At this age, we cough and we think, oh no, is that a cough or is it the cough? You have the strengths. You've done it forever. What has worked for me, what not? Or you have people in your life that have lived with uncertainty and have lived through difficult things and you like how they do it, ask them. But if I find that's like a lot of questions people ask, I'll delve into the literature more to see what can best help you. I think it's a very good point because we live as if we know. And by the way, the literature is people are not good at predicting their future behaviors. And I could give you the research on that, just like 41% of people retire earlier than they do. The majority of people think they're going to work till over 65. Only 27% do. We can't even predict our own very own personal future. So we do live with uncertainty, whether you realize it or not. I think we better end. And like I said, I really hope this helps you find purpose or at least gets you thinking that if you can make your life the best it has been. And thank you. This is really an honor to have been able to share with you what I know.
Jill, thank you so much for your presentation today. I really appreciate your time and insights and for giving all of us some of the interesting perspectives on thinking about a life and finding purpose in retirement. So on behalf of BU, we totally appreciate you and completely appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Go ahead, Jill.
Liliana, will you put the slide up with my information? People are asking
Absolutely.
how they can email me. And we'll give it to you.
Absolutely.
So here at the bottom is my personal email. My website has a lot of the research on how to find retirement. I mean, how to plan for retirement. And it's very useful if you're thinking with your couples issues, it's there so you can both read it together. Gender differences, how we approach retirement, how we get satisfied. Anyway, it's all there, but here you go. You can email me and it can inform us of future programs.
So we just encourage you to join us for part 2 of Finding Purpose in Retirement, From Retiring to Rewiring, next Wednesday, November 15th at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This will be a panel of BU alums who will speak about their experience in finding purpose, and Jill will facilitate that session. We will actually add some of the questions that you've included here and maybe have Jill respond to a few of them in the follow-up email. We will definitely share the recording as well as get Jill's permission to share the presentation. Again, thank you for joining us today and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. So we're off live.
We're ending now. I'll give you a call.
Oh, we can talk here. If we've been,
End webinar for all. That's my only option, or leave the webinar.